that question is important, and I think that's the question that's being asked across the nation. Is one, we need. I want to be crystal clear that Minnesota has to have prisons. We have to have accountability. It is a core and central public safety measure. But we also have to be smart about those facilities, because 95% of the people in them are going to get out. And it is in our collective best interest to ensure that they come out better than when they went in. And facilities play a role in that. And I think, when you look at some of the comments that were made from legislative leaders on both sides of the aisle about the nature of Stillwater, the lack of humane conditions, that was one of the words I heard to describe it for both staff as well as the people who live there. I think that the timing, the economic challenges, and the reality of Stillwater came together, and that's what the legislators coalesced around.
Commissioner, you mentioned St. Cloud earlier. Is that facility in any better shape than Stillwater, considering that it's an older building, correct?
Yeah, St. Cloud is in fact old, somewhat older than Stillwater. It is probably in better condition overall than Stillwater. In 2020, the Office of the Minnesota Legislative Auditor did a study on prison safety and security and recommended that the legislature look at either the replacement or upgrade of both the St. Cloud and Stillwater facilities. And so I think as we look to the future, certainly I think lawmakers are going to have to look at what that future is. But I think we want to take this one step at a time, and Stillwater is the starting point. And I think it does relate to the question of what do we want our correctional system to be and look like and to achieve.
Commissioner, I know you said that this might be a long time coming or a long thought out decision. I do know that the union that represents people who work there told us today it was a shock to them, and it caught them by surprise. What do you say to that?
It is. I understand. I was at Stillwater this morning. I met with both union leaders there, with facility leadership, the leadership team, who was also surprised by this a bit. And at the same time, over the last several months, I would say the last month and a half for certain, as an agency, just given the economic realities, we have been looking at all options in terms of managing our budget and maintaining our mission. And that has been the focus. And one of the concerns was, if you are going to implement cuts that have the same kind of economic impact across the system, our ability to be effective at any location would be terribly compromised. And so one of the things about this decision, as challenging as it is for Stillwater and Stillwater staff, the reality is that we want to make sure that our system can manage the needs of people who are incarcerated in our system, and this is the most effective way to do that.
Other facilities that you're going to be moving people to, are any of those also in need of like millions of dollars in maintenance?
Well, the DOC as a system, unlike a lot of state agencies, does have significant needs, and even some of the buildings, as we look at it, older buildings at Faribault or Lionel, are older. We do the very best we can to keep up with them, and right now everything's fine. The newest prison that we have is about 30 years old, and that's at Rush City. There is a lot of infrastructure that is quite old.
And then are you taking into consideration like the families of inmates? I know that some people will move to be closer to like the person who's incarcerated. How are they going to be factored into this, of where the inmates go?
So right now we make placement decisions really on the basis of the need of the individual, their security classification level, any incompatibilities that there may be within the system. So we make decisions on the basis of that, not necessarily where the family is located. But obviously we want to make sure that those kinds of communications and connections, because the research tells us that positive pro-social family connections does make a difference.
Will inmates get to have a say if they have a preference or not at all on where they'd like to go? No?
No, these placement decisions are based on the determination by staff.
Commissioner, I apologize if you already said this number. Roughly how much money was being poured into this facility every year to maintain it and try to keep it up to some sort of standard?
Different years, it can be anywhere from $5 to $18 million is being invested in bonding money just on deferred maintenance. That's not things like replacement of a core building or anything like that. We're talking about just deferred maintenance.
And that's just for Stillwater?
Just for Stillwater. We have about $780 million, close to $800 million in deferred maintenance needs across the DOC itself.
Commissioner?
You mentioned that the department has known the concern about safety, but the conditions have been described as hazardous. You mentioned here as well about lack of humane conditions. Can you tell us a little bit more about what exactly those conditions are?
Well, I think one of the things that was widely reported, I think, from a couple of years ago in September, about two years this September, when the temperatures were very hot, that there was a situation where one of the units refused to lock in. And that, just to give you a sense, if you're working in the kitchen at Stillwater on a hot summer day in Minnesota, the temperature in that kitchen can be over 120 degrees. You get up in the top tiers of Stillwater prison on hot days, and it can be well over 100 degrees in there. And all we have to manage that is fans. And the effectiveness of those fans is limited. So those are just some examples of the challenges.
And
What
has
are-
there ever been injuries or any sort of medical that have had to do that due to the conditions of the facility?
I wouldn't say necessarily due to the conditions. There are certainly safety factors. If you look at the tiers, it can be really unsafe for the population as well as for staff. There are problems up on the higher tiers. We've thankfully in recent history been fortunate not to have issues there. But that's primarily the factors that we get concerned about from a safety standpoint.
I'm gonna ask an off-topic question. There's been some rumors that, Derek Chauvin could receive a federal pardon. Can you weigh in on those rumors, and is there any preparations underway at Oak Park Heights to potentially have him back in Minnesota?
We are aware of the rumors, and we do not talk about, what operational plans may be in the mix. But I would say that, we are prepared and have heard rumors.
Lastly for me,
Last
I
one.
just wanted to ask, because I know you mentioned the historic designation of the building and like continue to come down. In theory, in 2029, would you have to find a buyer or the state to hold on to this building until you can find someone to buy it from you?
This is about 180 acres of property, just off of Highway 36 and 95. I think the article from the New York Times talked about conversion of some of even those old historic designated properties as condos, those sorts of things. What this would look like, that's for others to determine, and decommissioning study would look at, what possible options there could be for that. But that really is something that would need to be determined following that decommissioning study, which we hope to have started here in the next year or so.
Alright, thanks everybody.
Thank you, we appreciate it.
Commissioner.